So when we're talking about your social filter, it's really a way to teach kids what's okay to say and what's not okay to say in social situations. How do they figure that out? How do I figure out what I should say or what I shouldn't say? And really giving them the idea that, hey, what I say and what I do affects how another person feels. So taking the perspective of another, which is really hard to do for some of our kiddos, but a really, really important skill.
I'm getting there. I swear I'm getting there. Serious technical difficulties with.
You may have heard of this before. Some people call it a social filter. Other people call it a brain filter. Sometimes I teach it as, is this a think it or a say it? Or am I going to keep this in my thought bubble, or is this in my talking bubble? So those are all ways that we can kind of teach that skill. And we're going to start by really attaching feeling to it. So what we say makes someone else feel. Would that make them feel happy? Would that make them feel sad? Here we go. You are a champ. You are a professional.
Finally got there.
Okay. So, how we teach this is everybody has an invisible filter in the front part of our brain. You know what? I can't read because I'm in the way. How do I make myself small? Can I do that?
Drag your head to somewhere else.
Okay, there we go. Okay. Oh, my IT skills, you can tell. Okay. That's why I have Nicole. It can be called a brain filter or social filter. This helps us determine what thoughts are okay to say and what we should leave as thoughts. And really, sometimes children have difficulty regulating their emotions or taking the perspective of another and end up making statements that hurt another's feelings. And like I said before, teaching children about a social filter can help them determine if the thought is a think it or say it, an inside thought or an outside thought, a thinking bubble or a talking bubble. So we can flip.
Yep.
Who would benefit from learning about your social filter? I was talking with Nicole about this. We all would. I mean, it's true that we all say things we wish we wouldn't have, or we didn't consider the feelings of others. It's in those times that we should have used our social filter, even as adults. Teenagers really have a hard time with their social filter. But especially when we look at kids that benefit from this direct instruction, kids that are on the autism spectrum typically benefit from direct instruction. So a lot of times kids can pick things up subtly, those hidden rules. But kiddos with autism have a more difficult time. They need to know the rules and understand the rules, and then they can put them into play. Other kids that benefit are kids that can be impulsive and just kind of blurt out things. Kids that have difficulty with emotional regulation. So that, in times of anger, they're blurting things out. So we often use the word blurting when we're teaching this. Boy, you kind of blurted that out. Let's think about what we're saying before we say it and run that through our social filter. So, but in all, teaching this to all grade levels is important. So the next slide talks about perspective taking. And taking the perspective of others is a really important skill for our kids to learn. What we say and do has an effect on the people around us. Some kids need to learn about feelings first before you can say it. Can they recognize feelings? Can they recognize sad? Can they recognize mad? Can they recognize frustration? So those are building blocks for that. Oftentimes, people show that through body language, through their tone of voice, through their facial expression, and kids, especially on the autism spectrum, have difficulty reading those nonverbal cues. So someone's not going to say, well, I'm mad you said that I smell bad. I mean, they're going to make a face. And so they can't always realize, hey, that person seems upset by what I said. So those are all building blocks before you even get to the social filter. Hey, let's talk about feelings. Let's talk about reading some things on someone's face that shows how they feel, or their body, their arms are crossed, they're looking down. What does that mean? So that's where I always start, because if we have those skills, then we can move on and talk about, well, you made someone feel upset. What does that look like? What does that mean? And then we can get to say, think about how your words and actions affect other people. But putting it simply, I'll say using your social filter works by keeping your unkind thoughts to yourself and sharing your kind thoughts with other people. You know, one thing I say is thoughts are thought. You cannot stop your thought. You might have a bad thought about someone. What you can control is if you say it or not, right? So you don't need to tell a lie, because a lot of my kids will say, well, I don't want to lie. And I'll say, right, you don't want to lie, but that keeping it to yourself is not necessarily telling a lie. It's just keeping it as a think it. Why is this important? And especially for our elementary kids, enhancing relationships, improving interaction. So it's and building friendships, but it's not always just about friendship. It might just be an interaction with a peer. It might just be an interaction with a teacher or an adult. So getting all this, integrating this information is going to help in all those areas, and especially in building friendships, which is so important and difficult for some of our kids to do. Okay, we can move on. Okay, so where do we start? One thing that we can do is we can provide direct verbal information. So, you know, I gave some examples here. You want to say to your kids, we're going to think before we talk. We're going to think about what we say before we say it. For instance, I told Grandma that I liked her haircut, and the important part was that made her feel good. That made her feel happy because I said something nice. So, you know, they're going to look at your direct example. I don't really like the color of Mrs. Fox's new car, but I decided to keep that in my thinking bubble because if I told her, she might feel upset, and I don't want to make her feel upset. You know, instead of telling my classmate he has bad breath, I will just keep it to myself. So the kids that are impulsive have a really hard time with that. But once they start thinking about it, taking that perspective of others, you know, keeping those words simple. Is that a think it or a say it? I made even have like little popsicle sticks, you know, that I did. Is this a think it or a say it? Ooh, that looks like a think it, you know, as a speech therapist. I may not even use words. I might say, that was a think it. That was a think it. So that's where we want to start. We want to model and we want to give direct information about what we're doing. You know, our kids are watching us all the time. And so we can really kind of hit home with those teachable moments. Okay. So Everyday Speech is a great social skills resource. It is on YouTube. They have a variety of social skills video. This particular one is a thinking bubble, or a say it or a think it. I'm going to have Nicole play this in its entirety. I think it's 3 minutes, but it's well worth the watch. Video modeling the research shows that kids really respond to that. They're watching it happen. They're seeing other kids. So it's not just, you know, sometimes we get really verbose in our teaching, but really the visuals are really helpful. So let's take a peek at this one, Nicole.
See if we can get the volume to actually work.
There are some things that we shouldn't say out loud. We all have thoughts about other people. These may be good thoughts or not so good.
It's not, are you hearing that? No, you guys aren't hearing that? Okay.
No, nobody's hearing that?
Maybe we can start it over. It's kind of breaking up. Looks like it's breaking up.
Bad internet. Let's try from the beginning. Okay, let's turn it all the way up. I know sometimes sound gets really weird with Zoom and screen sharing, so.
I'm on Google. I can't even get the sound, so.
Okay. Try it again.
There are some things that we shouldn't say out loud.
Any better?
We all have thoughts about other people.
No.
These may be good thoughts or not so good.
Not moving.
Nope.
Okay. I wonder if
It is up all the way on my end. Let's try it. Maybe.
Other people that aren't so good, we should keep them in our head.
Nope, still
If
low.
we say all of our thoughts out loud,
yeah.
it can hurt people's feelings. When we have thoughts about other people, we need to stop and think. Should I think it or should I say it?
Your birthday this weekend was awesome. Oh, I'm sorry I couldn't make it, but I got you a gift. Ugh, I don't even like this color. I don't want it.
Sorry.
It's a little slow, but it's working.
What happened there? Let's see what Alessandra is thinking.
I hate the color. Why did she get me that?
Alessandra is upset. When she got a present she didn't like, she yelled at Serena and gave the present back. How do you think that made Serena feel? Let's see what the girls are thinking.
That was so mean. Serena did something nice for Alessandra by giving her a gift. I can't believe she yelled at me like that. She really hurt my feelings. I don't want to hang out with her anymore.
Serena feels hurt. The girls don't understand why Alessandra told Serena she didn't like the present. Alessandra had a thought that could hurt someone. Remember, if our thoughts are going to hurt someone, we should keep these thoughts inside. When someone gives you a gift, always say thank you. You might not really like it, but telling someone you don't like their gift will hurt their feelings. Let's watch Alessandra try again.
Your birthday party this weekend was awesome. Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't make it, but I got you a present. I don't really like this shirt. Should I thank it or say it? This will hurt Serena's feelings. I'll keep this thought inside. Thanks, Serena. I really appreciate it. Hope you can come next time. You're welcome.
That time, Alessandra kept her thoughts inside. If you're having thoughts that might hurt someone's feelings, it's important to stop and think. Should I think it or should I say it?
Okay. So I hope everybody at least watched some of it, but the key there is those, they're actually seeing their peers participate in that. And there's quite a few on everyday speech. So I wrote that as a resource, but that especially was a good one. And you can see that they attach it to feelings like what I said, how would that make her feel? And so I think that's a really important and nice thing that these videos do. We can move on. Okay, so the next, I just want to give you a few more resources and then we're going to go through some worksheets, but I have not read the Being Frank one. I went through it and it looks like it's a good one, but I do have that. I can't believe you said that. It's on Amazon. It is a very excellent story about the social filter. It's about a little guy named RJ and he seems to always say the wrong things to everybody that he runs into, and his parents teach him about the social filter. It's not too long, and you can skip some of the incidents if you wanted to even make it shorter for some of the younger kids. It's real easy to do that. So that's a really, really nice resource. And I just ordered the Being Frank, so I'll have to see how that looks, but it looks like a similar type book. I just don't know. Just haven't had that one firsthand, but I wanted to put it up there because I was excited there was another one. And the other thing that is an excellent resource for this is they're called boom cards. I don't know if anyone's familiar with those. It's an app on your computer, boomcards.com. There's a lot of free activities, and there's also some that you have to pay for. There is a ton. I put 2 up here. There is a ton on social filter, and it actually gives scenarios There's not a lot of videos, but it's a lot of cartooning. And it gives the kids a choice if it's a think it or say it. There's also ones that really deal with the emotions. You know, now that we're all in the Zoom world with our kids, this is one of my most favorite resources, the boom cards. And whatever social skill you're working on, they typically have something for it. But really, I was surprised at how much they have on social filter. So another really good resource for you. We're going to go through some that I found on Teachers Pay Teachers, TPT, and Pinterest. There's quite a few on there. But I want to talk about some of the ones. I know I showed you my little cards here, and typically when I do this in person, we do some of this together. You know, I made my own note cards. You know, that was a great try. That's what this one says. And the kids all have their popsicle sticks and they hold it up for me. Is that a think it or a say it? Ew, your hair looks gross. What did you do to your hair? So they read it and they determine, I'm going to run this through my social filter. How is this going to make someone feel? If it makes them feel good, I can say it. If it makes them not so good, I'm going to keep that in my thinking bubble. So a lot using role play activities, the video modeling I showed you, all these activities will help. And then once, you know, these activities, you go through them, you practice, you know, you can even do a code word when it's actually in real time and you're seeing it, you know, is that a think it or is that a say it? You know, you can come up for a code with your child instead of interrupting the interaction that's going on. But hopefully it will help them just kind of stop, think before they say anything. Okay. Comic strip templates are used quite a bit in speech therapy and in classrooms. It's a great way to have the child come up with something, and a lot of our kiddos like to draw. And so we use these a lot. This is one example, but you can do long comic strips and come up with a social situation and have them draw it out. What would be something you could say? What would be something you would keep inside your thinking bubble? And then I just put some references down. The social thinking curriculum, which I'm not sure if people are aware, but her name is Michelle Garcia Winner. She is excellent. She doesn't specifically hit on brain filter or social filter, but it's embedded into a lot of her concepts. So she is worth checking out. Her website, there may be something social filter, but we talked about those building blocks and identifying emotions, identifying nonverbal behavior. She does a really, really good job with that. And then I just put, there was a blog I used, so I put that on there just to be transparent. So that's kind of it. It's a pretty quick concept to catch on to. It doesn't take a long time to explain. So I knew that today we would take a lot of time kind of answering questions about it. And so that's where we're going to go from here. So thanks for listening.
Ellen, did you want to go over your worksheets first?
Oh, we can go over those. Yeah. Sorry.
No, just wanted to make sure before I stopped recording. So let me attempt to not mess up that screen share. Let's try this. All right.
So we'll go over these really quickly. It's just some other worksheets that I really think are useful and that have been really successful with the kids that I've worked with. So this is just a social filter worksheet. I believe it is on Pinterest. And we can just kind of roll through these, Nicole. Can I do that? Or do you have to do that? I think you do. So it's just using is your social filter on? This is the way they explained it, or is your social filter off? So what does it mean? If it's on, you're thinking about people's feelings, keeping mean thoughts to yourself. If your social filter's off, you're only thinking about yourself and not other people. Okay, this I love. So, and a lot of kids relate to this. So we're going to do think. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? N, is it necessary? And K, is it kind? So depending on the age group, this might be for a little bit of an older child, the words like inspiring and necessary, but we can also use different wording to help younger kids understand it. But it's a really good acronym is the word. Okay. And then we talked about, I mentioned the thinking bubble and the talking bubble, and this is what is meant by that. If you look at the top, the thinking bubble, no one can hear. They're all inside my head. It won't be people mad or sad. Thinking bubbles are private. And one thing I really do emphasize is thoughts, you can't help your thoughts. You can't stop your thoughts from coming. But again, you can decide whether it's something that you can actually say. This I thought was just really cute. I might have a problem if my thinking bubble pops. So it gives some examples and kind of that cartooning. And it again goes over hurtful thoughts and how it makes other people feel. And it's not okay to put mean words into your talking bubble. Those have to stay in your thinking bubble. And so this is one way this person thought of saying it. Don't pop my thinking bubble, which I think is kind of a cute way to do it. But I found that these, the wording is really easy for kids to understand. And the visuals of the bubble versus the talking bubble makes sense to them. In teaching in my social skills class, this is explaining what the social filter is and kind of gives a visual of it, which I think is nice. We let the good stuff go through, but we block the bad stuff. And some of it you can't really tell, but it's a really good worksheet for this too. We all have unkind thoughts. It's okay to have unkind thoughts, but we should keep them in our head to protect other people's feelings. Remember, we do not always say out loud what we're thinking. And again, I always say, adults, we all can use this once in a while, a reminder that we don't have to say everything in our head. And so they give you some good examples. Okay, so why do we do it? So this is a good thing for kids to know too, because we're looking at other people's feelings, saves you from being embarrassed, shows respect, because that's important, especially to, and we talked about this, Nicole, especially to grandparents and people like that. They, often mistake kids popping their thinking bubble for disrespect, but a lot of times it's just an impulse or not understanding that we don't say everything out loud. And it helps us stay out of trouble, because a lot of times when we say things that we shouldn't, we get in trouble. So that's just another example, kind of hard to see there. Maybe we can move through those. That's from the same. This is just one activity that you could print out. And we did that when we are not in the middle of COVID, when we have our sessions in person, we often do these where they cut them out and put, is this a think it or is this a say it? It's kind of a fun activity. So I think that one was another Pinterest. Is that all that I had there? Okay. And then again, I have some that I printed out from, these are TPT. They were free and I just printed them out so I didn't have to think them all up myself. So that's kind of it. Forgot about those. So thanks for bringing those up, Nicole. And I'm ready for any questions.